Can you give an example of where distance grew between you and Adam?
Um, wow. I would say as a general approach, we were always different and thus our ways of being needed to be closely integrated in order to be functional. So as an example, I might have a strong empathetic response to something, sometimes going too far. Like let's say an employee did something that an offense that they should be fired for. My empathetic response, oh, we can't fire that person. It'll ruin their life, blah, blah, blah. Adam, in my view, his empathetic response wouldn't show up in that context. He'd be like, fire them immediately. Like they did something bad. So usually a great combo would be some mix of empathetically firing the person, like still firing them, for example, because they did something bad, but like doing it in a way that wasn't just like harsh and hardcore and, causing the person pain, but more like looking out for them and hopefully helping them through that experience in some way. But if you abstract that same idea to some extent, now let's talk about, say, performance reviews, right? If you take Adam's perspective, he could learn from someone that, like, I don't know, some company in the world does, they do performance reviews, they grade everyone 1 out of 10 and they fire the lowest 10%, like just as a practice. And then I could be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, that's so out of date. Like, that's not the way modern, like modern HR and performance says that's absolutely wrong. And like, it's no way to run a company, and that we should actually be like working with the lowest 10% to really understand where they're coming from and blah, blah, blah. Right. If now one person attains power in that context and we're not actually discussing and and working through that together, it results in a very bad situation. Because if he goes through with the mass firings, which he did, I was like, what the fuck? Like, we've talked about that in the past. Like, I'm now holding on to this anger that he did something which he knows goes against me. At the same time, he thinks I should have developed a method of getting rid of the lowest performers, and that I wouldn't do it because I'm too empathetic or too nice. So now we've just got this distance where we don't see eye to eye. We're not talking about it. We're both kind of taking actions in our own way with the power that we have. And so we're now just sitting out here in this space, which is quite bad. And we're both utilizing this power kind of against each other, but not like, it's not literal. Like, I'm not going against his directive. He's not going against my directive, but he's using the channels of powers that he has, and I'm using this channel. And that's what you see in kind of like these companies that become non-functional, right? It's like bureaucracy almost. It's like people hold power in all these different places. They don't communicate. And then the whole company is just fucked because everyone's holding on to their own power. Luckily, we didn't have quite that much, bureaucracy, but we did have opposition in cases. Like with the leader circle, I just did that. I don't know. Adam walked by it lots of times. I think he even poked his head in the door, like, what are you guys doing in here? Um, I've explained it to him. I don't know if he ever believed in it or he thought it was bullshit or whatever. Um, but it was my thing. And so whatever, I'm a co-founder. I can do what I want. At the same time, he would conduct meetings in ways that I didn't think were productive, just the way they were held and the interactions and stuff. I would sit there being like, I would never run a meeting like this. And so, yeah, those are two high level, leadership polls or something that our team members are experiencing both of them, and they're clearly not aligned. Like, that's not good. It was, again, like, it was okay when we're all under, like you said, like maybe when we're sub 100 people, it's like people could kind of see it's all connected because they experience us more fully. But then when they're only getting like a short amount of time from here and a short amount of time from here, it's like, what the hell is going on here? This is weird. I'm sure it was very weird for many people. And there were people who would say, other people would actually identify it as, I'm Team Miguel or I'm Team Adam. Again, not good. Not good.
And you didn't have this sort of feedback mechanism that highlighted the difference in systems and approaches that forced you to come together to talk about them.
It's funny. It's weird to say that because it's like we overlapped and talked about stuff so much, but I guess we just avoided the subjects where there was, where I guess we were just kind of okay with what the other person was doing, but didn't. Yeah, it's a very tough one to figure out, like how there could be that opposition and yet we also would like be allowing it to happen, you know? Because it's also like we were also very aligned in many ways. That's what's really weird is that I can remember as I'm cycling through this, like so many times where it's just the two of us, you know, talking about where we are, what we're going through, what we're doing, where we're going, and finding so much richness and connection in that experience. So it's not like we were like two people who never talked to each other. Like we really did have these points of intense, you know, closeness and alignment. And maybe that's why we could just allow the other things to happen. You know, it's a bit like, you know, it's sort of like if you were in a marriage and I don't know, one partner was super into sports, but the other one didn't really like sports. And so they were really into, I don't know, fashion or something. And so they would go to fashion shows and the other one would go to sports. I don't know. It's hard to find how it worked, but kind of worked up until a point.
The general media has also sort of portrayed it as there being this sort of power split. It felt like over time, Adam felt a lot more in control. And I know that you, when you guys took the benchmark money, you agreed that you would give him some of your equity if you took the money once your equity was worth over $100 million. And so there was, I suppose, this natural division in the amount of equity that you both had. And what was the impact that you felt in terms of the dynamic?
Yeah, that's a very interesting one because when you think about where a company's power lies, you know, there's different sources. And certainly if you look at just, you know, board control, then he had the power. And if you look at, voting shares, he had the power. But I guess in my view, like when you looked at the like soul of the company, I felt like I had power and agency the whole way through. I mean, up until SoftBank came in. So yeah, I didn't feel disempowered in that way because I honestly didn't find it very interesting, those power sources, right? Like Adam is incredibly powerful as a business person to be able to raise billions of dollars for the company. But why was he able to do that? Because in my view, I was leading a team that developed an incredible product, you know, and spiritually, like soulfully, that product was just intertwined with my DNA. So yes, that was fueled by capital, which Adam raised and which I didn't play a direct role in. But like, I never felt disconnected from what was happening in the company in any way, you know? And in fact, I felt empowered to be like, these are people who I'm deeply connected to, and yet I just met them and they're in Moscow or Jakarta or Sydney or name a city around the world. Like imagine how fulfilling that is to feel this immediacy of energetic connection, you know, and also having them feel empowered by me being there and by me, you know, sharing this vision of the future. So yeah, there's a whole arena of things which like I didn't have power over, but at the same time, I'm like, what did that actually do? I mean, I know it did a lot, and that sounds sort of idiotic to be like these billions of dollars, but at the same time, like that has a limit, right? Like if you have billions of dollars without a culture of thousands of people to deploy that, it doesn't mean anything. And I won't take exclusive responsibility. I would say for this product DNA, I would say I have direct connection. Adam's DNA is also fully in the company in so many ways. But it's a bit more what the member and the employee on the ground would experience would be direct to me. Whereas you could say there's a whole culture of what it takes to power a startup, the drive, the kind of like relentlessness, the kind of, belief that you can do irrationally hard things. A lot of that stuff would come from him. So again, it's a combination, but that power is kind of like, I don't care. Like, what difference does it make? It doesn't affect me in a day-to-day basis in any way whatsoever. As long as we've got the fuel coming in, like, I'm good.
The thing that then feels like it must have been very tricky is when Rebekah came in and took a much more present role. She's then like named as a third co-founder, despite obviously only being like a support to Adam at the start. I don't know for how many years until she's actually properly involved in the company. And she took on roles like chief branding officer. And again, I look at how much you love design and brand, and you grew up like in the same town that Nike was born. You look at like the power of brand and how that was a massive impact on you.
Well, first I would say that